Danny Cole had been living on Galactic Trade Station Varix 7 for 6 months. He was 24 years old and worked as an engineer for the Joint Human-Alien Commerce Program. The station floated in deep space, far from Earth, and it was home to dozens of different alien species. Danny had always dreamed of working among the stars, but lately, that dream was starting to feel more like a nightmare. The station was huge. It had markets, living quarters, meeting halls, and entertainment zones. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked through its metal corridors every day. Some were small and quick, others were tall and slow. But one species stood above all the rest, both in size and in power. They were called the Korthani. The Korthani were reptilian creatures that stood 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in thick scales, and from those scales grew a natural armor made of biometal. This armor was part of their skin. It could stop blades and resist fire. The Korthani were proud warriors, and they made sure everyone on the station knew it. They walked like they owned every hallway. They spoke like their word was law, and in many ways, it was. Commander Vrek, the Korthani overseer, controlled most of the station's operations. Danny tried to stay out of their way. He did his job, fixed machines, and kept his head down. But then the announcement came for the annual strength trials. The strength trials were a tradition on Varix 7. Every year, members of different species would compete in tests of physical power. It was supposed to be friendly, but everyone knew the truth. It was a way for species to show dominance, and the Korthani always won. Danny made a decision that he would later regret. He signed up for the trials. He thought it would help humanity. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They were often ignored or dismissed. Danny believed that if he could make a decent showing, maybe the aliens would start to respect his kind a little more. He was not trying to win. He just wanted to prove that humans were not completely weak. The day of the trials arrived. The arena was packed with spectators from every corner of the station. Aliens with fur, scales, feathers, and skin of every color filled the seats. They cheered and shouted and placed bets on the outcomes. Danny stood in the waiting area with the other competitors. His heart was beating fast. The first challenge was simple. Each competitor had to punch a measurement pillar. The pillar would scan the impact and give a score based on force. The higher the score, the stronger the punch. Danny watched as the Korthani went first. One by one, they stepped up to the pillar and threw their fists forward. Their armored knuckles crashed into the surface with terrible power. The scores flashed on the screen above. 580, 620, 610. The crowd roared with approval. Other species followed. The large, bear-like Brevari scored around 400. The thin, fast, Tessic managed 200. Each result was met with polite clapping or mocking laughter, depending on the score. Then it was Danny's turn. He stepped forward and felt every eye in the arena turn toward him. The Korthani in the front row were already smiling. Their sharp teeth gleamed under the lights. Danny tried to ignore them. He focused on the pillar. He pulled back his fist. He threw his best punch. The pillar hummed. The screen flickered. The number appeared. 47. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the laughter began. It started with the Korthani. Their hissing, rasping laughter echoed through the arena like a wave. Soon, other species joined in. The sound was deafening. Danny stood frozen, his face burning with shame. Commander Vrek rose from his seat. He was the largest Korthani on the station, and his armor was decorated with golden lines that showed his rank. He raised one clawed hand, and the crowd fell silent. "We have just witnessed something educational," Vrek said. His voice was deep and cold. "The humans have shown us their true nature. They are a species of glass and air. Fragile, weak, breakable." The crowd laughed again. Some aliens nodded in agreement. Danny wanted to disappear. Vrek continued. "Let this be recorded. Humanity is not fit for the challenges of the galaxy. They are soft creatures, from a soft world. Perhaps they should be reclassified as a protected dependent species, unable to stand on their own. Danny walked out of the arena with his head down. He could still hear the laughter behind him. By the time he reached the human quarters, the video of his punch had already spread across the station's network. Everyone had seen it. Everyone was talking about it. His crewmates tried to comfort him. "It does not matter," said Linda, one of the doctors. "We know our worth." But her words felt hollow. Danny could see the worry in her eyes. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Trade negotiations between humans and other species began to fail. Alien merchants refused to meet with human delegates. They said there was no point in doing business with a species so weak. Some aliens even started making jokes in public. They would pretend to punch something and then fall over, laughing at their own imitation of Danny. Danny stopped eating in the common areas. He stayed in his room when he was not working. He felt like he had damaged humanity's reputation beyond repair. Then, one evening, the transport ship from Earth arrived. Danny went to the docking bay to help with the unloading. He was moving cargo containers when he saw a familiar face step off the ship. It was his younger sister, Katie. She was 19 years old, with freckles on her cheeks and her brown hair tied in a simple ponytail. She stood 5 feet and 4 inches tall and weighed maybe 130 pounds. She looked small and ordinary and completely out of place on a station full of giant aliens. A Corthani guard scanned her documents at the entry checkpoint. He looked down at her and let out a low, hissing laugh. "Another glass creature," he muttered to his partner. "The humans keep sending us their children." Katie did not react. She just smiled politely and walked through. Danny rushed over to meet her. "Katie, what are you doing here?" She hugged him. "I got accepted into the xenobiology program. I am here to study alien plants." She pulled back and looked at his face. Her smile faded. "Danny, you look terrible. What happened?" He did not answer. But she would find out soon enough. Everyone on the station knew the story of the human with the weakest punch in galactic history, and Katie Cole was about to change that story forever. Katie Cole spent her first week on Varix 7 learning the layout of the station. She memorized the paths to the science labs, the cafeteria, and the observation decks where she could watch the stars drift by. She met other researchers and attended orientation sessions, but everywhere she went, she noticed something strange. The aliens looked at humans differently than they looked at other species. It was not fear. It was not respect. It was something closer to pity, mixed with amusement. She heard the whispers. She saw the sideways glances. When she walked past a group of Corthani soldiers, they did not bother to lower their voices. "Look at the little soft one," one of them said. "Be careful not to breathe too hard, or you might knock her over." They laughed. Katie kept walking. At first, she did not understand. Humans were new to the galactic community, yes. But they had technology. They had ships. They had survived for thousands of years on their own planet. Why did these aliens treat them like helpless insects? Then she found the video. She was sitting in the human common room when Linda, the doctor, showed it to her. The footage was only 30 seconds long. It showed Danny stepping up to the measurement pillar at the strength trials. It showed him throwing his punch. It showed the number 47 appearing on the screen. And it showed the entire arena exploding into laughter. Katie watched it 3 times. Her face did not change, but her hands slowly curled into fists. "When did this happen?" she asked. "About 2 months before you arrived," Linda said. "It has been hard on all of us, but Danny took it the worst. He blames himself for everything." Katie found her brother that evening. He was sitting alone in a corner of the observation deck, staring out at the endless black of space. She sat down next to him without saying a word. For a long time, they just sat there together. Finally, Danny spoke. "I thought I could help us. I thought if I showed them we were willing to compete, they would respect us. I was so stupid." "You were brave," Katie said. Danny shook his head. "I was weak. And now everyone knows it. Vrek is pushing to have humans reclassified. He wants us labeled as a protected species. That means we would lose our voting rights in the Trade Council. We would need alien guardians to approve our decisions. We would be treated like children forever. Katie felt her jaw tighten. He cannot do that. He can. And he will. Unless something changes. Danny finally looked at her. His eyes were tired and sad. I am sorry. Katie. I ruined things for all of us. Katie did not respond right away. She was thinking. She was remembering her years of training back on Earth. She had started boxing when she was 12 years old. By 16, she was competing in regional tournaments. She had also trained in mixed martial arts, learning how to use her whole body as a weapon. Her coaches had always told her that she had something special. Not just skill, but power. Real, natural power. But on Earth, she was just another athlete. There were plenty of people stronger than her. She had never thought of herself as exceptional. Now, sitting on this station surrounded by aliens who thought humans were made of glass, she began to wonder. She remembered something from her biology classes. Earth had a gravity of 1 gram. It was one of the highest habitable gravities in the known galaxy. Most alien species came from worlds with lighter gravity. Their bodies had evolved to move easily in those gentle conditions. They grew tall and large, but their muscles were not dense. Their bones were not heavy. Humans were different. They had evolved under crushing gravity, with thick atmospheres and dangerous predators. Their muscles were compact and powerful. Their bones were reinforced. Their entire biology was built for survival in harsh conditions. The Korthani looked impressive with their size and armor. But their homeworld had a gravity of only 0.4 grams. They were big because they did not need to fight against heavy gravity. Their strength came from their mass, not their muscle density. Katie began to understand. Danny's punch had scored low because he was not trained to fight. He was an engineer. He had never learned how to throw a proper punch, but she had spent 7 years learning exactly that. What would happen if someone who actually knew how to hit things stepped up to that pillar? She stood up suddenly. Danny looked at her with confusion. Sign me up for the next strength trials, she said. Danny stared at her. What? The trials. When are they held again? Every month. But Katie, you cannot be serious. You saw what happened to me. You are even smaller than I am. Katie smiled. It was a calm, confident smile that Danny had not seen since they were children playing in their backyard back in Ohio. Danny, do you remember when I was 14 and that boy from the next town tried to bully you at the county fair? Danny blinked. You broke his nose. I broke his nose, Katie confirmed, and he was twice my size. That was different. These are aliens. They have armor. They have never met someone from a world like Earth. Katie put her hand on her brother's shoulder. Trust me. Sign me up. News traveled fast on Varix 7. Within hours, everyone knew that a human female had entered the upcoming strength trials. The reaction was exactly what Katie expected. The aliens thought it was hilarious. Commander Vrek personally approved her entry. He made a public statement calling it an educational demonstration of natural hierarchy. He said it would be useful for the younger Korthani to see how weak other species truly were. The betting pools opened. The odds against Katie were so high that most bookmakers refused to even accept wagers in her favor. It would be throwing money away. They said. The human girl would be lucky to score higher than her brother. Katie heard all of this. She read the comments on the station's network. She saw the mocking posts and the cruel jokes. She did not respond to any of them. Instead, she went to the small gym in the human quarters. She wrapped tape around her knuckles. She stretched her muscles and shadowboxed in front of the mirror. She practiced her footwork, her breathing, her form. The other humans watched her with a mixture of hope and fear. They wanted to believe she could do something. But after what happened to Danny, they were afraid to hope too much. The night before the trials, Katie sat alone in her room. She looked at a photo on her tablet. It showed her and Danny as kids, standing in front of their house in Ohio, both of them smiling. I am not going to let them laugh at us anymore, she whispered. Outside her window, the stars watched in silence. Tomorrow, everything would change. The arena was packed on the day of the trials. Katie had never seen so many aliens in one place. They filled every seat and crowded along the railings. Some floated near the ceiling on small hover platforms, trying to get a better view. The noise was incredible. Hundreds of different languages mixed together into a wall of sound that echoed off the metal walls. Katie stood in the waiting area with the other competitors. She was the only human. She was also the smallest person in the room by far. The other competitors towered over her, Korthani warriors in their gleaming biometal armor, massive Bravari with thick fur and powerful arms, lean Tessic with 4 legs and quick reflexes. They all looked at her with expressions ranging from confusion to amusement. One Korthani warrior walked up to her. He was young, probably not much older than Katie herself, with dark green scales and armor that shone like polished bronze. His name, she would later learn, was Dren. You are the human, he said. It was not a question. I am, Katie replied. Dren looked her up and down. You should not be here. This is a contest for warriors, not for soft creatures who break in the wind. Katie met his eyes without flinching. I guess we will see. Dren laughed. It was a harsh, rasping sound. Yes. We will see. He walked away. Still chuckling to himself, the trials began. Commander Vrek stood on a raised platform above the arena, watching everything with his cold, yellow eyes. He raised his hand, and the crowd fell silent. Welcome to the strength trials of Varix 7, he announced. His voice boomed through the speakers. Today, warriors from across the galaxy will test their power. As always, the first challenge is the measurement pillar. Each competitor will strike the pillar, and their force will be recorded. Let the trials begin. The crowd cheered. The first competitor stepped forward. He was a Korthani soldier with silver armor and scars on his face. He rolled his massive shoulders, pulled back his arm, and punched the pillar with tremendous force. The number appeared on the screen, 617. The crowd roared with approval. The Korthani in the stands beat their fists against their chests in celebration. More Korthani followed. 589. 634. 601. 655. Each score drew more cheers. The Bravari came next, scoring in the 400 seconds, respectable, but clearly below the Korthani. The Tessic scored in the 200 seconds. Other species scored even lower. Katie waited patiently. She knew they were saving her for last. They wanted to make her the final joke of the day. Finally, her name was called. And now, Commander Vrek announced, his voice dripping with barely hidden amusement, we have a special competitor. A human female. Here to demonstrate the limits of her species. Please welcome Katie Cole. The arena erupted in laughter and mocking cheers. Katie walked out onto the floor with her head held high. She wore simple workout clothes and had tape wrapped around her knuckles. No armor. No enhancements. Nothing but her own body. The Korthani in the front rows were already making jokes. Do not blink, one of them shouted, or you will miss it. Another one pretended to faint. Drawing more laughter from the crowd, Katie ignored them. She walked to the pillar and stood before it. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Danny was watching from the human section of the stands. His hands were gripping the railing so hard that his knuckles had turned white. Linda stood next to him, her face pale with worry. Come on, Katie, Danny whispered. Please. In the arena, Katie closed her eyes. She blocked out the noise of the crowd. She blocked out the mocking laughter and the cruel whispers. She focused only on her body. On her feet planted firmly on the ground. On her core, tight and ready. On her right arm, loaded like a spring. She remembered her training, thousands of hours in the gym, thousands of punches thrown against bags and pads and sparring partners. She remembered her coach's voice telling her to transfer her weight, to rotate her hips, to put her whole body behind the strike. She opened her eyes. The crowd was still laughing, Commander Vrek was smiling down at her from his platform, waiting for the entertainment to end so he could mock humanity one more time. Katie set her stance. Left foot forward, right foot back. Knees slightly bent. Weight balanced. She raised her fists in a classic boxing guard. The laughter faded slightly. Some of the aliens noticed her posture. It looked different from what Danny had done. It looked practiced. Professional. Katie pulled back her right arm. She rotated her hips. She drove forward with her back leg, transferring every ounce of force from the ground through her body and into her fist. She threw a straight right punch directly into the center of the measurement pillar. The impact sounded like thunder. The pillar did not just register the hit. It cracked. Fracture lines spread across its surface like a spider web. Pieces of the material fell to the floor. The digital display above flickered and went dark for a moment. The arena fell completely silent. Then the display came back on. Numbers scrolled across the screen, almost too fast to read. Finally, they stopped on a single figure. 2,847. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. 2,847. Nearly 5 times the highest Corthani score. Katie shook out her hand casually, like she had just knocked on a door a little too hard. She turned to look at Commander Vrek. His yellow eyes were wide. His mouth hung open. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. Katie smiled. "That was my right hand," she said, her voice carrying through the silent arena. "My left hook is actually stronger." The silence stretched on. Danny was standing in the human section, tears streaming down his face, a huge smile breaking across his features. Linda had both hands pressed over her mouth, unable to believe what she had just witnessed. And then, from somewhere in the crowd, a single alien started clapping. Then another. Then another. The applause spread like wildfire, growing louder and louder, until it shook the walls of the arena. But not everyone was clapping. The Corthani stood frozen in shock. And in the competitor waiting area, Dren's face had twisted into something ugly. His pride could not accept what he had just seen. His entire understanding of the universe had just been shattered by a small human girl. He pushed through the other competitors and stormed toward the arena floor. His claws were extended. His armor was raised in threat display. The crowd noticed him. The applause died down. A new kind of tension filled the air. Katie turned to face him. She did not run. She did not back away. She simply waited. And Dren, blind with rage and denial, made the worst decision of his life. He attacked her. Dren charged at Katie with all the fury of a wounded predator. His clawed hand slashed through the air, aimed directly at her face. His biometallic armor gleamed under the arena lights. He was 8 feet of rage and muscle and natural weaponry. Katie moved. To the aliens watching, it looked almost impossible. One moment she was standing directly in the path of Dren's attack. The next moment, she was not. She ducked under his swinging arm with a speed that seemed to blur. Her body dropped low, and his claws passed harmlessly through the space where her head had been. Dren stumbled forward, thrown off balance by hitting nothing but air. He spun around, confused and even angrier than before. "Trickery," he snarled. "No soft creature could possibly." Katie did not let him finish. She stepped inside his guard, planted her feet, and threw an uppercut directly into the center of his chest. The sound was unlike anything the arena had ever heard. It was not a thud. It was not a crack. It was something in between. A deep, resonating boom that echoed through the entire space. Dren's biometallic armor, the same armor that could withstand plasma burns and blade strikes, cracked under Katie's fist. A visible dent appeared in the center of his chest plate. Fracture lines spread outward from the point of impact. And then Dren flew backward. He did not stumble. He did not stagger. He was lifted off his feet and thrown through the air like a rag doll. He crashed to the arena floor 6 feet away, sliding another 3 feet before finally coming to a stop. He lay there gasping, his hands clutching his damaged armor, his eyes wide with shock and pain. The silence that followed was absolute. Every being in the arena stared at Katie. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. Katie stood in her fighting stance, her fists still raised. She looked down at Dren with an expression that was not cruel, but not kind either. It was the look of someone who had made a point and was waiting for everyone to understand it. Commander Vrek finally found his voice. "Guards!" he shouted. "Seize her!" 4 Korthani soldiers rushed toward the arena floor. They drew their shock batons and moved to surround Katie. But before they could reach her, a voice rang out from the stands. "Stop." It was old and commanding, and it carried an authority that made even Commander Vrek hesitate. The crowd parted, and an ancient Korthani female stepped forward. She was smaller than the others, her scales faded with age, but her eyes were sharp and bright. She wore robes of deep purple, the color of the Korthani Elder Council. "High Elder Vorax," Commander Vrek said, his voice suddenly uncertain. "This human attacked a Korthani citizen." "She must be." "Dren attacked her," Vorax interrupted. "We all saw it. He struck first. She defended herself." The old female looked at Katie with something that might have been respect, and she defended herself very effectively. The guards stopped. They looked at Vrek, then at Vorax, unsure of what to do. Vorax continued walking until she stood before Katie. Despite her age, she moved with dignity and grace. She studied the small human girl with curious eyes. "You cracked his armor," Vorax said softly. "That armor is grown from our bones. It can stop a blade. It can resist fire. And you broke it with your bare hand." Katie nodded. "Yes. How?" Katie considered the question for a moment. Then she spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "We come from Earth. Our world has a gravity of 1 gram. Most species in the galaxy come from worlds with much lighter gravity. Your homeworld is only 0.4 grams. You grew tall because you did not have to fight against heavy gravity. We grew strong because we did." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Aliens began pulling out devices, checking information, searching for data about Earth, Katie continued. "On Earth, everything is trying to kill us. The gravity pulls us down. The predators hunt us. The weather tries to freeze us or burn us or drown us. We evolved to survive all of it. Our muscles are dense, our bones are thick, and we have spent thousands of years learning how to fight." She looked directly at Commander Vrek. "Humans are not soft creatures from a soft world. We are small because we had to be strong. Every pound of our bodies is packed with power that you cannot imagine." Vorax let out a low, thoughtful hum. "A Deathworld species," she said. "We have heard of such things, but we have never encountered one so directly." "Now you have," Katie said. Behind her, Dren was being helped to his feet by the guards. His armor was visibly damaged, and he moved with pain. He looked at Katie with an expression that had changed. It was no longer rage. It was not quite fear. It was something closer to reluctant understanding. Commander Vrek stepped down from his platform. His face was a mask of controlled emotion. He walked toward Katie until he stood only a few feet away. "This changes nothing," he said. "One human with unusual strength does not. It changes everything," Vorax interrupted. "And you know it, Vrek." She turned to address the crowd. "The proposal to reclassify humans as a dependent species is withdrawn. Immediately." Vrek's jaw tightened. "High Elder, I must protest. Your protest is noted and ignored." Vorax's voice was like iron. "These beings are not weak. We were simply too arrogant to see the truth. That ends today." The aliens in the crowd began talking among themselves. Merchants were already recalculating. Diplomats were reconsidering treaties. Scientists were making notes about human biology and Earth's gravity. Everything was shifting. In the human section of the stands, Danny was crying openly now. Linda had her arm around him, and she was crying too. The other humans were hugging each other, laughing and sobbing with relief. Katie looked up at them. She found Danny's face in the crowd and gave him a small nod. He nodded back. Commander Vrek watched all of this with barely hidden fury. He had spent years building his position. Years pushing humans down to raise his own species up, and now a teenage girl had shattered everything in a single afternoon. He turned and walked away without another word. But Katie saw the look in his eyes before he left. It was the look of someone who was not finished. Someone who would be looking for revenge. She filed that away for later. Right now, there were more important things to focus on. Vorax approached her one more time. The old Korthani reached out and placed a clawed hand on Katie's shoulder. It was a gesture of respect among their kind. "You have given us much to think about, young human," Vorax said. "The galaxy will be watching your species more carefully from now on." Katie smiled. "Good. We have a lot to show you." The crowd began to disperse. The trial was over, but the ripples from this day would spread across the entire station, and eventually across the entire galaxy. Katie Cole, a 19-year-old xenobiology student from Ohio, had just changed the future of human-alien relations with a single punch, and somewhere in the back of her mind, she was already thinking about what she would do next. Because she knew that earning respect was only the first step. Keeping it would be a much longer journey, but for now, she let herself enjoy the moment. She walked out of the arena with her head held high, ready to face whatever came next. The days following the strength trials were unlike anything the humans of Varix 7 had ever experienced. Everything changed, and it changed fast. Commander Vrek demanded an immediate investigation into Katie Cole. He claimed she must have used some kind of enhancement technology. Hidden implants. Chemical boosters. Genetic modifications. Something, anything to explain what had happened. The medical teams complied. They scanned Katie from head to toe. They analyzed her blood. They examined her muscles and bones and nervous system. They ran every test known to galactic science. They found nothing, no implants, no modifications, no tricks, just human biology. Dense muscle fiber evolved under heavy gravity. Thick bones designed to support weight that most aliens could not imagine. A cardiovascular system built for endurance. A nervous system wired for quick reactions. Everything about Katie Cole was natural. Everything about her was simply human. The report spread across the station within hours. Scientists from dozens of species downloaded it and began studying its contents. What they found shocked them. Earth was a death world. That term had always existed in galactic databases, but it was treated as a curiosity, a theoretical category for planets that were too hostile for comfortable life. Nobody had really believed that intelligent beings could evolve in such harsh conditions, but humans had. And the report showed exactly what that meant. Earth's gravity was 1 grams, one of the highest in the known galaxy for a habitable planet. Most alien species came from worlds with gravity between 0.3 grams and 0.6 grams. Their bodies had evolved to move easily in those gentle conditions. They grew large and spread out because there was no force pressing them down. Humans were the opposite. They had evolved under crushing weight. Their muscles were compressed into tight, powerful bundles. Their bones were reinforced with extra density. Their hearts pumped blood through bodies that constantly fought against the pull of their world. And that was just the beginning. Earth had atmospheric oxygen levels that would be toxic to many species. Its climate swung between freezing cold and burning heat. Sometimes in the same region, its surface was covered with predators. Early humans had to fight every day just to survive. The result was a species that looked small and fragile but was actually terrifyingly powerful by galactic standards. The report noted that an average human could run for hours without stopping, could lift objects many times their body weight, could survive injuries that would kill most aliens, and could recover from wounds at remarkable speeds. And humans had spent thousands of years developing organized systems for fighting, boxing, wrestling, martial arts, war. They had turned violence into a science. The aliens of Varix 7 began to look at humans very differently. Within 2 weeks, everything shifted. Trade delegations that had refused to meet with humans were suddenly requesting appointments. Merchants who had laughed at human products were now eager to negotiate. Diplomats began revising their assessments of Earth's potential as an ally. High Elder Vorax kept her word. The proposal to reclassify humans as a dependent species was not just withdrawn, it was destroyed. The records were erased. The idea was officially declared an error in judgment. Commander Vrek retreated from public view. He still held his position, but his influence had been badly damaged. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone who had so badly misjudged an entire species. Some whispered that he should resign. Others said he should be removed. For now, he simply stayed quiet and waited. Katie tried to return to her normal life. She had come to Varix 7 to study xenobiology. Not to become a symbol of human power. She attended her classes and worked in the labs, and tried to blend into the background. It did not work. Everywhere she went, aliens recognized her. Some approached her with curiosity, wanting to talk about Earth or ask about human biology. Others kept their distance, watching her with wary respect. A few even asked if they could touch her arm, just to feel the density of human muscle for themselves. Katie handled it all with patience and grace. She answered questions honestly. She did not brag or boast. She simply explained that she was not special among humans. That there were millions of people on Earth who were stronger than her, faster than her, more skilled than her. This information did not reassure the aliens. It terrified them. Danny's life changed too. He walked through the station with his head held high for the first time in months. Aliens who had mocked him now stepped aside to let him pass. Some even nodded at him with respect. He was Katie Cole's brother. He was human. That meant something now. One evening, about 3 weeks after the trials, Danny and Katie sat together in the observation deck. The stars drifted past the window, cold and beautiful in the endless black of space. "I still cannot believe it," Danny said. "I spent 6 months being treated like a joke. And you fixed everything in one afternoon." Katie shook her head. "I did not fix everything. I just showed them one thing. The hard work of building real relationships, real trust. That is going to take years, maybe generations." Danny nodded slowly. "You are right. But at least now they are willing to listen. That is all I wanted." Katie leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. "I was so angry when I saw that video of you. Not at you. At them. At the way they laughed. At the way they treated you like you were nothing." "I felt like nothing," Danny admitted. "You were never nothing." Katie opened her eyes and looked at her brother. "You were brave enough to try. You stepped up when nobody else would. That took courage." Danny smiled sadly. "Courage without power is not very useful." "It is," Katie said firmly. "Because someone had to go first. Someone had to show them that humans would not hide. You did that. I just came along and proved why they should have taken you seriously from the beginning." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside the window, a cargo ship drifted past, its lights blinking in the darkness. Finally, Danny spoke again. "Do you think Vrek will cause more trouble?" Katie considered the question. She had not forgotten the look in the commander's eyes when he had walked away from the arena. That was not the look of someone who had accepted defeat. That was the look of someone who was planning. "Probably," she said. He lost a lot of face. His whole position was built on the idea that Korthani were the strongest species on the station. Now everyone knows that is not true. He will want to get that power back somehow. Should we be worried? Katie smiled. It was a small, confident smile. Let him try. He has seen what one human can do. If he comes after us, he will learn what all of us together can do. Danny laughed. It was the first real laugh she had heard from him since she arrived. Outside the observation deck, the galaxy stretched in all directions. Billions of stars, countless worlds, trillions of beings who had never heard of Earth or humans, or the small blue planet that had forged such a strange and powerful species, but they would hear about it soon. The story of Katie Cole and the cracked armor was already spreading. Ships were carrying the news to distant stations. Traders were telling the tale in markets across the spiral arm. Scientists were publishing papers about human biology and death-world evolution. Earth was no longer unknown. Humans were no longer dismissed. And somewhere on that small blue planet, Spinning under its heavy gravity, new generations were being born. Children who would grow up strong and dense and resilient. Children who would one day travel to the stars and take their place among the species of the galaxy. The universe was vast and dangerous and full of wonders. And humanity was just getting started. In the observation deck of Varix 7, Katie Cole watched the stars and thought about the future. She did not know what challenges lay ahead. She did not know what enemies might rise against her kind. But she knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, humanity would face it together. And anyone who underestimated them would learn the same lesson that Dren had learned in the arena. Small did not mean weak. Soft did not mean fragile. And humans, for all their gentle appearance, were forged in the fires of a world that never stopped trying to kill them. They had survived, they had thrived, and now they had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same.